Hello everyone, I'm Burfy1322 and this video will showcase the lap times, top speeds and race tiers of all the day 1 cars from the GTA 5 Kortz Center Heist update. If you want to see how all vehicles from all classes perform, check the original testing videos in the playlist linked in the description and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on future testing of new vehicles added to GTA 5 and beyond. So, first of all, the Gang Burrito's long reign at the top of the Vans class is finally over. It survived the Rumpo Customs Wiggles, the Moonbeam's misallocation into muscle instead of Vans, and the HSW of the Vivonite sitting in SUVs instead. But it couldn't avoid the addition of a fast van that was actually put into the right class, and the Loifer goes nearly 3 seconds per lap and 5 mph for top speed, faster than the Gang Burrito to take the top spot on both metrics by a significant margin, which the Gang Burrito previously held that top spot on both of them as well, although you could argue that it probably shouldn't have done if things had been put in the right place originally. Next up, we've got the E-Stride. It's an electric SUV. It's got a terrible top speed, as you probably might expect. It's actually got a worse top speed than the van that we've just seen, but it is the fastest electric SUV, if you don't count the HSW Vivonite, so that's something, I guess. It sits just behind the main contenders in the A tier like the Astra and the Rebel GTS, mainly because it's too quick for the B tier, and for an electric car its off the line acceleration isn't actually that great, so if you want this car to perform well in A tier SUV races, you'll need a track with a bunch of slow corners and mid-sized straights. It is a nice smooth to drive ride though, so still better than a Tropos. Now the Marula is honestly one of the nicest cars to drive in the entire game, at least for what I like in a car. It's so well balanced and planted and just does everything that you want it to do with ease. With a really strong top speed for the class as well, you probably won't need anything other than this for sedan races now, unfortunately, in what was once a very balanced class at the top. The others are only about half a second behind though, so still certainly usable, and on specific tracks they might be able to beat the Marula, but overall it's just a bit too much of the best bits of all the top sedans rolled into one, such that in reality you probably won't need anything else. Now the Cartuccia GT, it's the fastest non-HSW car in the game for top speed, beating out the previous best of the non-HSW Banshee GTS by 1 mph at 139. The lap time it gets puts it in the B tier for the sports class, a tenth of a second or so behind the Pariah, but with a 3 mph top speed advantage, so kind of well balanced in what is a very large B tier for sports now that has 9 cars separated by less than half a second of lap time, but this is the new non-HSW king for top speed. The Velino GT next, it's a competent supercar with pretty good general grip and speed. It can be quite twitchy with a tendency to experience a bit of snap oversteer, so you're sort of constantly having to manage that, but ultimately when everything works it gets a lap time good enough for the second highest tier of non-HSW supercars, sitting alongside things like the Ignis, the Wagner and the Thrax. Also got a really high top speed as well, only 0.25 mph slower than what we just saw from the Cartuccia, so if that hadn't have existed, this would have been the fastest non-HSW car in a straight line. The LRC GT next, it's very grippy and has lots of downforce. It's about half a second slower than the Emirates at the very top of the non-HSW supercars class, but it's still in the same tier as the Emirates due to having a really solid and higher top speed of 130 mph, which is actually pretty good for non-HSW cars. It'll depend on the track as to whether, which one's going to be better. Ultimately, things like the Emirates and the Krieger still have a bit of an advantage in the A tier for supers, but this is definitely, part of that group now. And then the Velino GT HSW version, and it's definitely in the top tier of supercars alongside the HSW Cyclone 2, Weaponized Ignis and FMJ Mark V, but it does have a slower lap time than all 3 of them while having a better top speed to put it first in the class on that metric and 4th across all cars in the game. It just doesn't have enough base grip to be able to really compete with the top 2 in the class of the FMJ Mark V and the Weaponized Ignis. And obviously that snap oversteer that I mentioned with the non-HSW version is still a problem here, so you've got to manage that as well. It's just a bit too stiff and rigid over some of the bumps, so it's probably relatively closer to the top 2 on a flatter, more top speed oriented circuit, but ultimately the FMJ Mark V is still the king basically on most tracks across all cars at this point. And when it comes to sort of the HSW top vehicles that include some of the top HSW sports cars as well, the Velino does still find itself towards the back end of that top tier. You've got things like the Niobe, the Lacaroos that get faster lap times than this, but again, it does have that better top speed. You know, that top speed really does help it when it comes to competing with some of the other vehicles at the top of, you know, the HSW subclass, if you like. But ultimately it is lap time wise just a bit off the pace because it just doesn't have the grip, and you can see how it sort of loses pretty much all the way through the lap to the FMJ Mark V just because it just doesn't have the grip to stay with it. It's quite similar, I would say, to the Cyclone 2 in this regard because it lacks the grip that ultimately gives it the lap time, but it has an advantage in a different area. In the Cyclone 2's case, that advantage is in acceleration. It's got huge acceleration that kind of makes up for the lack of grip. For the Velino GT, it's its top speed. It's got a little under a 10 mph advantage over the FMJ in supers, and just under 10 mph down on the ultimate best across all cars of the Banshee GTS. So that's it for this DLC. The last few bits of the drip feed for this DLC will be coming in the 2026 specific testing videos that you should keep an eye out for and make sure you're subscribed for. Those will be coming out very soon for every single class. But for this video, that's everything. Please consider supporting on Patreon or become a YouTube member if you want to support this work and get some extra perks for doing so, such as early access to videos and other testing results. And also remember to read the description for more info, comment with your thoughts, like the video if you enjoyed or found it helpful, and subscribe for more. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.